Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, the Sun Devils went out there and were in complete control on Saturday against a West Virginia team that had struggled that we thought ASU would handle, but because they're contractually obligated, it made it a one-score game, and they came out on top with some nice late-game heroics.
So is there something like, in the contract with, I don't know, Mountain America Credit Union or something that every game it has to be a one-score game no matter how it starts? Because my goodness, we kind of called it on that one because we both said the same thing. Like, this is a game that it will be closer than maybe it feels, or there will be points in the game at which it's a different level of closeness than it ends. And that's exactly what we saw with just a really weird game. Now, it's always good to win by all means. That's better than the alternative, but just the strange structure of that 22-point outburst in the second quarter and just so little outside that. It was just a wacky game against West Virginia. ASU allowed far too many big plays to a true freshman quarterback, but they held on and got it done when they needed to. Another big game out of Jeff Sims and some timely playmaking got the victory for ASU. So here we are, 10 games into the season, only 2 left in the regular season. ASU standing at 7-3. Those lofty goals still technically intact. So you keep that hope alive. Now they travel for their last road game of the year because, beyond this, it'll be, neutral sites for postseason and that sort of thing. The last road of the game of the year coming up at Colorado. So a lot to break down here as we wind down this 2025 regular season.
Yeah, Sun Devils are continuing to kind of defy expectations a little bit with, a lot of key injuries, but they just keep finding a way. And we'll dive into that game, that 25-23 victory over West Virginia. And we'll also be talking to a few key Sun Devils. Jalen Moss will be joining the show, talking about his road back from injury and now becoming a key playmaker for the Sun Devil offense. Then stalwart linebacker Keyshaun Elliott is going to be talking about how the defense kind of responded a little bit in that late game situation to get things done. We'll also go behind Colorado lines with insider Brian Howell. But let's dive into some news items. And, ASU is 7-3. Some fans are a little maybe upset that, ASU is not in the driver's seat as they were maybe a season ago. But, Joe, the nation is maybe starting to take notice of what Kenny Dillingham and staff is doing with this injury-depleted team, still finding a way to win, because just earlier tonight, the new college football playoff rankings are out, and hey, the Sun Devils are in them.
Yeah, they squeaked in at number 25. That dropped just, about 20, 30 minutes before we started our recording here. It's always good. Things, they always happen on the days we record. This is not the biggest news that we've ever heard. We've gotten some doozies in our years on recording days, but that's a good piece of information. So, that's good. Public perception stuff, helps with enthusiasm and things like that. Now, then that's going to work itself out, because if ASU takes care of business, through the remainder of the season, even if it does not land them in the Big 12 championship game or the college football playoff, they still certainly have the opportunity is there for this to be a double-digit win season. That is still possible. You get there, think about like when ASU had double-digit wins in like the 2013-14 seasons. You're within the top 15, top 20 if you get to that point. So, putting a final stamp of a national ranking is still on the table. And it's cool to have that now. Now, obviously, a lot can change in 1 week. If you don't take care of business, you will firmly be out of that position. If you take care of business, you might even be able to creep up a little bit. So, it's a good little achievement to be back in those rankings. But again, it's all about taking care of business.
All right. So a trio of Sun Devils had some recognition from the Big 12 Conference for their part in getting the win over West Virginia. Jeff Sims, again, Offensive Player of the Week. Jordan Crook, Defensive Player of the Week, and kind of completing the clean sweep, Jesus Gomez, Special Teams Player of the Week.
Man, I mean, starting with Jeff Sims, it's really something special. I mean, obviously, for a great deal of the offseason, we talked about it's kind of like a low-key fact, a low-key item of importance as far as player retention, roster retention, was keeping Jeff Sims around. You heard us talk about that quite a bit, as far as you got to have a backup quarterback that you can be ready to throw out there. And there are probably few in the country that have the experience that he has as a backup. So just an incredibly important thing. And lo and behold, see how the season's transpired. His presence has become enormous. And so the fact that he has claimed back-to-back Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week or co-offensive Player of the Week in the 2 games he played. Of course, there's a week of games in between because ASU had a bye, so it's not that they were necessarily back-to-back awards, just awards in games that ASU played. I mean, that's remarkable for him to go out and do that. It just it's a lot of confidence in ASU being able to end the season strong, under his guidance. And this, I think you can just firmly and conclusively say that the offense is fine with him in charge. I mean, I'm not saying that the offense is a powerhouse, but it wasn't before, even when Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson at full strength. This is a team that I think has only scored in excess of 30 points like once this year, if I'm not mistaken. So not trying to take this on a negative note because it's a good thing, but man, the keys are in good hands with Jeff Sims there, and you certainly hope that things continue along. Just seeing a lot of confidence out of him. Obviously, the Iowa State game was a lot on the ground, and then against West Virginia, especially in that second quarter, he was airing it out a lot. So you've seen quite a bit of what he can do. You just got to be real happy, with him. Jordan Crook coming to play. I felt a little competitive because in our Friday show, the Untimed Down, like I picked Keyshaun Elliott and you picked Jordan Crook. They both had big games, and these guys are playing at super high levels, but I'm like kind of competitively. Keyshaun Elliott had a really important sack, but Crook had a huge, huge game. Obviously Keith Abney is someone that deserves a shout out there as well, just playing elite football. And then Jesus Gomez, I mean, even though he had one blocked, we saw a new wrinkle out of him. That's for sure. Yeah. Throwing for a 2-point conversion in a play that was interesting, and it's very good that it was successful because ASU won by 2 points. So if you don't convert that when it wasn't really necessary at the time, that could go back to bite you, but everything worked out, and he's just got yet another game-winning kick to his credit there. That's 4 times that he's won? Yeah. At least 3, but is it 4?
Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah,
because he went back-to-back twice and then had one prior and now this.
Yeah, so I mean, and this is what his third ultimate, maybe not like walk-off game-winning kick, but like game-winning kick. That's the third, right? Because he had TCU and Baylor before that.
If we go like the hockey definition of a game-winning goal,
yeah,
the margin of victory.
Yeah, like there you go. Or in the last couple minutes, something that you can figure being the difference maker. So again, a guy that's made a huge difference. I know that there's been some blocks and some other issues and stuff that is maybe in or out of his control, but obviously. Awesome season for him, and that's something that it's cool to see. It seems like the voters put a lot of weight on, like, if you kick a game-winning or near game-winning field goal, that gets you bumped up, even if you miss or have a block. I think the crunch time is what really means a lot for those folks, which makes sense.
So I had to submit my Lou Groza Award finalist ballot today, and I was assuming that I would see Jesus on the list of semifinalists, and there's like 20, and he was not. And they made a point to all the guys who have 20 or more made kicks and made the list, and Jesus is, I believe, 19 of 26. He's had 2 or 3 blocks.
Yeah,
and you figure one of those is probably going in because he's a pretty good kicker. So I'm like, did one of those blocks, and perhaps even the one on Saturday, cost him a spot on my ability to vote for him as the nation's best kicker?
And even the ones that he missed, because he had a couple misses that weren't blocks.
There was a bad snap that really just messed
like
with
bad snaps, some weather issues. Again, not trying to be total apologist, but it's like I think you can rationalize him at least making probably 2 to 3 more. So that is unfortunate. I mean, I think he'll still be in consideration for some maybe honorable mention Big 12 or something along those lines. There's some good kickers out there, but his place kicking has, whether even if he's not on these short lists or longer lists for postseason accolades, which I don't think is fair that he's not included. He should mean something a lot in the hearts of Sun Devil fans, because man, if you had the place kicking of recent years instead of him, there are 2 to 3 games that ASU may not have as wins right now, and this could be a very, very, very different season than it is right now. So yeah, no, great for all those guys to be recognized. I mean, Jordan Crook just putting together a really, really good season, partnering with Keyshaun Elliott. Sims really stepping up with his opportunity, and Gomez making it when it counts. And when he does that, it looks so effortless. That winning kick against West Virginia, and obviously that one against Baylor where he didn't even have to watch it. I think this was one of those players that when a lot's on the line, he really gets the best out of himself.
And also on the Jeff Sims point and just how valuable he's been. I actually had practice earlier today. I was talking with Michelle Gardner. She was talking about, she was working on a end of the year article for the Republic. Asked my opinion on offensive MVP. And obviously you think Jordan Tyson, but he's been out. Maybe Raleek Brown, but he's been okay. He put some good, not stellar numbers. And I'm thinking that maybe if Jeff Sims finishes these next 2, I think that it's hard to argue against, just in terms of, now granted he would have started just 4 games, but sure, at the time in which he came in, season hanging on by a thread. And if he continues at this level over the next 2, secures the cup, gets this team to 9 wins, I don't know. I mean, that would be weird. I just think that you would have to be in that discussion, which would be weird. Like in a season where you enter with a Heisman hype quarterback,
Mhm.
an All American receiver, a loaded backfield. Just kind of goes to the overall. This is a cool story.
Yeah, I mean, if it were given today, I might be inclined to give it to Gomez because the argument can be made for that. Maybe like on a team
Score the
MVP
most
scale,
points.
as far as most valuable guy who won you the game, So yeah, it's when we do our postseason awards, it's going to be real interesting because
Yeah.
some of those big names that were integral in the games they played just maybe not had played in enough games to really capture that. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting, even if things go great, you know what I mean? Much less if not. So yeah, it's been not a bad, but such a weird season. But weird can be good. There's a lot of weird in my life that's good and has been for a while. So you know what?
Almost
Weird's not
boring.
exactly right. Yeah, we need. It's always something university,
Yeah.
and something doesn't necessarily mean something bad.
Yeah.
It can just be something, and that's what it is.
And we'll get to a certain something that dropped earlier today that's been a talk, but a couple other small news items to pass along. The Colorado kickoff time, because last time we joined you folks, it was on a 6-day hold at 6 p.m. Kickoff time, ESPN2. Looks like the weather gods are actually going to be favorable. It's going to be cold, but it looks like all the precipitation will be on Thursday, Friday, and miss the game on Saturday night.
Yeah, and so it'll be kind of a weird atmosphere. I'm sure a lot of folks are maybe going to have some flashbacks to the Corvallis, Oregon days, in this time of year, and rainy, crappy, coldy, whatever that could be a word, weather and that sort of thing. But realistically, and we'll obviously break this down in tremendous detail. But Colorado terrible against the run. ASU that's right up their alley. So if you got some weather issues, there's some cold or things that maybe take you away from passing, throwing the ball a lot. That's going to favor ASU remarkably in this game. So weather almost could play into ASU's favor if anything else. And as you'll hear, just the game day environment at Colorado, things are in rough shape there. So that kickoff, while not the premier one that you would want, there are some ways where it may not backfire against ASU.
All right. Of course, as we close out here, before we dive into kind of the day's big story, injuries. And of course, all eyes are centered on wide receiver Jordan Tyson trying to work his way back to make his return against his old team. Now, earlier today, as Kenny Dillon mentioned, that he would start to try to ramp back up. What we can report now, and seeing him out there, it was good. He was dressed in full pads for the early part of practice, did some sprints throughout, did some light position group work. We'll see again as we record this on Tuesday evening. We'll see what happens on Wednesday morning and throughout the course of the rest of the days leading into Saturday's game. Of course, with a hamstring, those muscle soft tissue injuries, got to be pretty careful. Easy to aggravate, and of course with the cold weather coming up ahead. But for the first time in a while, I can say that I saw him out there in full pads, running around, catching some passes. Good to see.
Yeah, and my opinion is, whatever puts him in the position to be as close to 100% as possible for the Arizona game, and to have as little, rust as possible. They should not need him in this Colorado game. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit to get out there. Of course, he transferred to ASU from Colorado. And maybe, if he's at a good percentage, he gets a little bit of run. You just don't want to throw him out there too soon because, again, as much as you want to have him out there, you should not need Jordan Tyson out there against Colorado, and you want to be as stocked as possible for that Arizona game. The last thing you want to have happen is for him to, rush back or take on too much too early and re-aggravate it. And, at this point, if it's re-aggravated, he's probably going to miss the rest of the season. So, they want to be meticulous with it. I'm sure that they are. And I'm sure that last home game is the one that they're squarely circling. That sounds like an oxymoron, but he'll go with it, as his return point if for any reason he can't get back against Colorado. Now then, ASU got another big home win at Mountain America Stadium, and just like the Sun Devils protect their home on game day, you need to protect yourself, your family, and your home from unwanted pests, and you should do so with a company that you can trust with a great reputation. There's no better way to do so than with a company of fellow Sun Devils in ASU alumni owned and operated Nice Pest Company. Nice Pest Company serves residences and businesses all over the valley. Check this out. Like we tell you every single week, Sun Devil fans, you can get your first service for just $42 with 100% of those proceeds being donated by Nice Pest Company to ASU's Sun Angel NIL Collective. So support those who support what you love. Give your business to fellow Sun Devils with an incredible reputation who, just like you, want to do their part to help Sun Devil athletics to thrive. Nice Pest Company has sent well over 100,000 bugs to their final resting place. We got to get updates on those numbers. I'm sure with our help and support, that's well over like $250,000. Maybe we're talking 7 figures in terms of dead bug carcasses that are hanging around because of Nice Pest Company. They've got well over 200 5-star Google reviews. So what we're telling you here is you can rest easy knowing that your family, your home are in great hands. So whether you've got scorpions or bed bugs, roaches, buffaloes rampaging your home, maybe they can help with that. We will see, whatever it may be. Or if you just want to make sure that your home is protected against any sort of future house guests like that, give Nice Pest Company a call. Let them do the dirty work so you can have the peace of mind that you deserve. It's always a nice day to support the Sun Devils, and with Nice Pest Company, it's always a nice day to be bug-free. Check them out online at nicepest.com for a free quote, and make sure to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Nice Pest Company.
All right. We saved the biggest news item for last. Earlier this morning on Tuesday, On3 Rivals, they reported that Sam Leavitt and his camp are, quote, shopping him at a high level, and that they categorize his return to Arizona State in 2026 as doubtful. Shortly thereafter, Sam's brother pushed back on Instagram, posted a story, a screenshot of an exchange with Pete Nakos of On3, kind of disputing the report in it to a degree, but basically saying that there was no decision as of yet. So other outlets then confirmed that report. The Athletic saying that Miami and Texas Tech are among those interested there. I did some talking at practice myself. I will say there's probably some smoke to these situations, but I do think overall, as we dive in here, this is a situation. Nuance is needed. A kind of a discerning eye. This is obviously the current and the way business is done in college football and has been for a number of years, and you're only going to see it ramping up going forward. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. I think I don't know that this was necessarily something that maybe the Leavitt camp wanted out at this point, and maybe the folks kind of scooped that in On3. Again, that's kind of speculation there, but overall, I think that every player should be able to find their value. It's the kind of free market capitalism that America's built on. But it's going to be really interesting because he got a lot. ASU, the folks here and the businesses have done a lot to get him come back after that 2024 season. He's compensated well, but I don't think there's clearly not in that that Carson Beck, Darian Mensah tier of like $3 to $4 million a year. But perhaps that's a figure. Maybe this is all leverage play, Joe. It could be a situation he doesn't want to leave, knowing that he's going to be coming back from that injury. He's going to miss spring ball regardless if he's here, there, or anywhere. A lot at play, a lot of things that are still unknown at this point.
Yeah, right now our discussion obviously very preliminary because nothing has happened other than that this report has come out, right? And Leavitt essentially has you can make any one of 3 decisions. Could stay at Arizona State, could transfer, could enter the draft. I mean, that's really what we're looking at here. Not really looking like he would enter the draft, and I think that most would agree that would not be a wise decision for him to make, especially after missing the amount of this season that he has. And, when he played, he had good games with some great performances, but I'd say, not enough to build an NFL draft high-level resume on. So will he stay? Will he go? And it's a big decision. Like you said, is this a leverage play? Is this, because it's a similar conversation that some folks were mentioning relative to, coaching rumors, and Kenny Dillingham now obviously made some statements recently as well. But before some of those statements came out, you wonder, does someone in that position not outright say, yeah, I'm going to come back, because that kind of takes away the leverage. If you dangle the carrot a little bit and make folks think, oh man, this person might leave, we need to put some extra zeros or a bigger number at the front of that paycheck that they're getting. It's just kind of a leverage move, so to speak. But at the same respect, it could be something that leverages out of ASU's wheelhouse, or just what they may want to do. And again, this is obviously speculation, not anything that we have any sort of deep knowledge of. This is such a new thing that hasn't truly developed yet. Could reach a point where it's just, hey, the money, there's I'm sure a point where it's like, all right, this money is worthwhile to spend on this player. It could reach a point where it's like, we got to bow out, because whether that may be too rich for the blood, or might say, hey, we can go out and get, a quarterback and a running back, or multiple players for this, let's think of the greater good of the team. So We will see what transpires from here. What we do know is he's not going to be on the field for Arizona State through the remainder of this season. So on the field, it doesn't obviously impact things. It's not like he is still the starting quarterback and this news came out, which would be a whole deal in, altogether.
The UNLV last year where they started 3-0 and then their guy just
and that and
let's renegotiate.
And has anybody heard from that dude again? Man, that's a shame. So yeah, it is it's shocking, but also not, because in college sports, these sort of things kind of have to be expected. Again, nothing is set yet, so he could stay. He could be a lifetime Sun Devil, and this could be a blip on the radar. But sometimes it's also difficult, maybe even for like young fans, to be very closely connected to players, because that, hey, this person could possibly leave. So it's certainly not good news. We'll see if it's catastrophic news. What we do know is that ASU does have a commitment from a highly rated quarterback coming in, and there's going to be you've got guys like Cam Dyer. I would imagine that ASU is going to go do some work in the transfer portal at quarterback, no matter what, because you got to get somebody with some experience. So these are going to be conversations for a month or so from now, once the season's over and things wrap up, and we got people that are actually entering the transfer portal, but it just remains to be seen. We'll see if anything further comes from this, anytime soon, or is this just going to be handled after the year? But yeah, like I said, it's not a great thing, but we will see how it transpires, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast, and just also ignite some other conversations, more of a wish list than anything, because it's not like any of us can really implement any sort of policy, but you get people talking about things like, all right, we need terms, we need contracts, you need something where it's like there's some level of commitment that you sign this NIL deal for X amount of years, and you're at least with that, like at least what boundaries you're playing with, because the year to year free agency, man, it's tough on everybody involved, and it gets to the point where it can make it tough to be a fan, because you don't know what to expect for the future, and facing a potential rebuild year after year, even if you're at a team that is winning a lot of games and has a ton of momentum, even in a season that's kind of weird, you're still winning games and you still have these things happen. Pretty frustrating. So again, there are games to be played, and more important issues to focus on, because the ball is being thrown around and on the field, and not on the internet. So for now, just kind of a weird deal. And again, another really interesting morning news dump.
Yeah, maybe we need to get Peter Boyle back in here at a little bit after the season, talk about the new frontier, or the latest frontier in NIL and player roster management. But yeah, I do think there's some these key points that, first off, I think everybody, if someone's going to pay you $5 million, you're probably going to be at least open to hearing what they have to say. So I'm not going to fault Sam or anybody for listening, but obviously tampering is rampant. It's been happening. Several high profile ASU players who have left in recent years have been tampered with during the season, have been contacted. There's obviously the intermediaries, the back channels, that happens, and that's something that just is a persistent thing throughout college football. I don't think it's any surprise that this on Monday in Kenny's weekly press conference, he went into a very detailed discussion about, he praised the fans, and kind of, as he called them, the casual fans, all the sellouts, and the folks that buy the merchandise. But I think he made a pretty deliberate point of calling out like kind of the big businesses, like the big dollar folks. And he's talked at length since he got here about just the valley and the potential of the valley, and all the businesses and all the major corporations that are here, and just the that vast reservoir of dollars that ASU has really kind of not tapped into very much. And they've made, ASU is has some decent resources, good resources, but it's not great resources. It's not Ohio State, it's not A&M, it's not Florida, or pick your Big Ten or Power 2 school. I believe ASU is at about over a little bit north of like that $18 million of the 20.5 rev share figure. And then that, of course, doesn't count like the third part of the true NIL and the post house, which does factor in like all the businesses, like the cold beers and cheeseburgers, with the signature items for Sam and Jordan Tyson. So and then there's just that where it comes into like the skill of the roster building. To your point, Joe, like how much is too much? Like it's like cap management in a way. Everybody's cap seems to be different though, and rather than like the NFL where there's everybody's playing on a level playing field, but like how much can you devote and should you devote to a quarterback? How much can you, because you can pay that and you can get a big guy or a good guy in here, but if you can't protect them and pay an offensive line, not doesn't do you a whole lot of good, or a defense to keep you close in games. Or that's what I think ASU's done really well over the last couple of years, but now is in this new frontier with the latest wrinkles. How are they going to be able to do that? And is it just like, is the blue chip, the Jake Fetty, number 7 quarterback in the country coming in? Is that basically like your kind of the NFL first round rookie quarterback on the rookie deal, where it's like, okay, you get him on the cheap. You try to win for that first year or two before he gets really good, and then like takes the high dollar contract elsewhere or something like that, or do you continue to find those diamonds in the rough? The roster building and the cap management is so crucial, and I think you're seeing that kind of shift in college football, where you had those CEO type coaches, but now you're seeing more of just like that pendulum going back to like the ball coach, and just like you hire some really good smart people to manage your roster, recruiting, run the portal, be in that front office stuff, and then like you let your coach cook. It's really interesting, but I think in terms of and Sam's certainly not going to be the only Sun Devil player that is in this. He's certainly going to be the highest profile player that's going to be in this situation. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how this plays out in terms of just whether how much smoke there is. That's the sense I got from my conversations early today, that there's some smoke there, but we'll see where that goes, because that could be from a number of different fires at this point. Again, this just happened, 12 hours ago as we sit here and record this. But man, it's just kind of the new age that I know a lot of fans have been bemoaning, but also on the flip side, the portal and has been one of the reasons why ASU has been able to flip this roster and flip their fortune so quickly. So it giveth and it could potentially taketh away.
It's what I like to say, and maybe this is more foreshadowing or a statement for a slightly later time. If this were to go a direction that takes them away from ASU, is what's been proven to me in recent years. Man, when it comes to ASU football, things are never as good or as bad as they seem. Like that cloud that hung over everything during the Herm Edwards era. I remember thinking, like, man, it's gonna take a decade to get out of it. Like, it's gonna be a long time before this is even a respectable team, much less like a winning team. And then this year was supposed to, be a great year, and it's been a above average one. So that's where things are maybe not quite as good as they seem, not quite as bad as they seem. Like things just always kind of like some hills and some valleys, but they kind of, I don't want to say regress to the mean, but just kind of float around a certain general area. So yeah, we'll put a pin in it for right now on that, but quite a bit of news to digest. But if you are jonesing for ASU to jump back in the win column for the 3rd straight time, if you're jonesing for that in the same way that you're jonesing for a new automobile, a new vehicle, perhaps starting the new year right with a new ride, perhaps buying your loved one or yourself a vehicle for the holidays, well, then your first and only call needs to be to Jones Auto Group. They've been servicing the state of Arizona and Sun Devil community for more than 50 years with multiple locations across the state. And like we tell you, it is a fact. Jones Auto Group was the original provider of vehicles to Sun Devil student athletes for NIL purposes. And it is your support that enables them to continue to do that year after year. In addition to their unwavering support of Sun Devil athletics, Jones Auto Group offers unique tax advantages due to their dealership locations, which can save you some big time money. Basically, where they're located has a lower tax rate than the general Phoenix area, Maricopa County area, so you can potentially save some money by shopping with them for a new vehicle. Doesn't get any better than that. You can possibly save some money compared to what you do out here in the Valley, and you get to work with a fellow Sun Devil. So here's what you do. You contact Parker Jones, not just the owner, not just the GM, but a 3rd-generation Arizona State alum, and just like you, a diehard Sun Devil football fan. Here's his cell number. Take it down. Seriously, shoot him a text. Give him a call when you're in the market. If you're just kicking the tires, so to speak, pun intended, he'll talk to you. You're not going to get pressured into anything. He's going to be honest with you. I have a lot of friends I've referred to him that can tell you that right there. Take down his number, 602-881-8998. Again, that's 602-881-8998 for Parker Jones. You can browse their inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles at jonesautocenters.com. Jones Auto Group, Arizona's best since 1970.
All right, Joe, let's talk about ASU getting another win, 7th of the year. beating West Virginia, a game in which they were in pretty much control of for about, I don't know, 50 minutes of the game or so. Um, and then had to hold on and mount a rally, and then obviously some late game heroics to seal the deal. But man, Kenny, after the game, Kenny's used the kind of a metaphor that I thought was pretty apt for the game and probably most of this season of we're building the airplane as it's in the air. And I think that's with all the injuries, all the adjustments, all the adversity, some of that self-inflicted. That's been what the Sun Devils have been doing. And yet I think this is maybe, similar to what we saw in Iowa State is I think this is a win for the culture. That this team that's been counted out, that's been so ravaged by injuries at key spots, and sometimes just doing some dumb things like giving up a 90-yard touchdown on a 3rd and 27. But
pass to the running back, like out of the backfield. Like we're not talking Reggie Bush, like streaking down the sideline that beat somebody. Yeah.
yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, and so Keyshaun Elliott does discuss that play a little bit later on. But overall, I think that this is a team that, despite the penchant for making things more difficult than it needs to be, just finds a way. And we've been doing the show since 2011. We've seen a lot of Sun Devil teams that just find ways to fumble things away, to lose, to not rise to the moment, and yet some way somehow this team starting a lot of guys that weren't necessarily looked on to carry on key roles or, committing mistakes and this or that. They just get the win, and that's ultimately what counts.
It was a weird game. I mean, the end result is what you want, but it was a weird game. For whatever reason, yet again coming out sluggish to begin the game after a bye week, which was the same thing happened at Utah. It was just really strange. I mean, it was an early game, and I had concerns about that. If the time of the game was just something that might have thrown them off, just sluggish offensively on those first couple drives. Had a similar thing happen on defense that we've seen in like multiple games where they let the other team drive the length of the field for a couple early possessions, but like they'll just make the stop when they need to make the stop.
Goal line stands were pretty impeccably timed.
Goal line stands, getting them on 4th downs or holding them to field goals, scenarios where you have games where, I mean, you could be down 14-0 5 minutes of the game and it's like 3-0 or 6-0. Like it stays manageable. I think ASU didn't get their first down until like the very, very end of the first quarter. Then you get to the second quarter and they just wake up and they realize that they're a better team than West Virginia and they can do a lot of things, especially through the air, and have this 22-point outburst that would have been, basically 22-0 if not for, one of two big plays that kind of broke the defense, that 75-yard touchdown reception midway through the second quarter for West Virginia. So, ASU goes up 22-10 into the half. So you're feeling pretty good. But then, things slip away. The third quarter doesn't bring you too much. So the fourth quarter, you let them, not only inch their way back in, but kind of, I guess, mile their way back in with big plays and stuff like that. But then ASU, in true fashion, marches down, gets the field goal to go ahead. One that I think a lot of folks, myself included, it was tough to watch because you didn't have a lot of confidence, not in Gomez, but just I think a shorter kick that was blocked.
Yeah.
But they just found a way, to get it done, made the timely plays when they needed to. Keith Abney sealing the deal with the interception. So, all is well that ends well. It was just kind of agonizing. And it's just, it is this weird Groundhog Day thing of this program where it's such a double-edged sword of, it is outstanding that this team does not fall apart when things fall apart, and they have the resolve to be able to bounce back again in the face of a 90-yard touchdown to the running back on 3rd and very long, when just, if somebody just like gets a hand on them, you're fine. That's great to be able to do that. But I just, on the other hand, man, it would be great to have the ability to do the like foot on the throat thing or the twist the knife deal that we heard about in the halftime speech last year, of being able to take a 22-10 halftime lead and maybe make that into something like a, 43-10 13 victory. You know what I'm saying? So again, it's a double-edged thing. And at this point in the season, it's not about the projection. So when you're looking at these games like early in the season, you think, okay, well, they won this one, but if they keep doing this stuff, are they going to lose against this better team? Or is this going to catch up with them? You know, you start kind of running those numbers in your head for how it's going to project. Right now, there's only 2 regular season games. It does still concern me because the team at the end of the regular season is playing some good football. You got to clean it up. But at the end of the day, win's a win. It didn't leave a great taste in your mouth, but it's a much better taste than any flavor of defeat.
Yeah, you mentioned like the really sleepy start, and I asked Jalen Moss and Keyshaun about whether that bye week in which they did not practice, they did nothing physical that week, just to as the this beat up team could rest, played a role. And spoiler alert, they both said no. But you mentioned ASU really kind of came alive in that second half and then held on by their fingernails. Overall, I thought in some key areas they actually kind of really improved. Like there's just 5 penalties for 31 yards. They did, have that block kick, but I thought special teams played okay.
Once Kenyon Floyd got in there, I mean, he was killed. Like I don't know why wasn't he kicking if he could kick in the game, if he could punt in the game, why didn't he punt to begin the game? Because I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I really hope I never have to see Matt McKenzie ever punt at Arizona State University. Like, has he had one single punt that has exceeded like 35 yards this year?
I don't know. He looked good in fall camp, but ever since he's been called upon, he's struggled. And then Floyd comes in, last 2 over 50,
averaged 50 on all 3. You know, like,
and today he had maybe the most beautiful punt I've seen since Turk was here in the dome. It was a 60-yard bomb, perfect. It was amazing. And so I'm like, that quad's got to be feeling a little bit better. The red zone offense was 2 touchdowns and 2 red zone trips.
That's sneakily improved.
I mean, yeah,
like in the last few games, like that aspect that has been knocked way down the list of fears and concerns.
That Iowa State linebacker doesn't get that little finger on that amazingly designed play that would have been a touchdown against Iowa State to Raleek Brown, even better. Joe, what are these 4 numbers? 29, 218, 66, 17.
I mean, they don't sound like Powerball numbers. Those would be really weird, like measurements, I can't think of anything clever enough beyond what I said, so I am drawing a blank.
ASU's offensive yards gained by quarter: 29 in the first, 218, and then in the second half, everything kind of ground to a halt, 66, and then 17 in the fourth quarter. Kenny Dillingham did say that ASU struggled and that he put the blame on himself and the coaches. When West Virginia, they went from a lot of zone pressures in the first to more man in the second. But we've seen that, and I think that is a concern that we've had. Just like once ASU gets the lead and they know that can they ground out that clock, and we've seen some struggles in that regard. But I mean, ultimately they got the win. But I do think that we need to heap some praise on this Jeff Sims fella who continues to play really good. 19 of 28, 207 through the air, 3 touchdowns. I believe his 4th career 3-touchdown game and his first in which he did not throw an interception. Led the team with 81 yards rushing. Did have a fumble on a 4th and 1, but one of the things that he's done really well in his last couple starts, spreading the ball around. And Derek Eusebio, a career high with 6 catches, 74 yards a score. Mateer had 4 catches, 21 in his 3rd straight game, I believe, with a touchdown. Raleek Brown had a nice touchdown catch among his 3. Jalen Moss getting involved with 3 catches as well. I do have some concerns. The run game was a little stagnant outside of Sims. Raleek Brown was held for 53 yards on 14 carries. Offensive line, I didn't think had as good of a game as they did against Iowa State, in which they racked up 290 yards on the ground. But West Virginia did have a very good run defense all year, and the struggles were evident. But I thought, I think ASU knew that going in, that they were going to have to make some plays to the air, and I thought Sims rose to the moment.
So for Sims, was he credited with the fumble? Because I'm looking at like the ESPN box, and they have ASU credited with 2 team fumbles, 1 lost. I didn't get a great look on. I know what play you're talking about, where it kind of looked like it was the one where it was initially like several yards further down the other direction, and they brought it back, and it kind of, I don't know if it was a bad snap, bad exchange. I don't know. Was he conclusively credited with it?
Well, maybe I shouldn't, because like sometimes we're at like the point of mesh, if somebody doesn't take possession, so it might have just been like, that those do get credited as team. So perhaps maybe I'm being a little unjust and throwing the turnover, but On that 4th and 1, there was a
There were
snafu.
yeah, exactly. It didn't go great, but and I, not to beleaguer the point, but man, there was snapping was an issue at center. We talk about NIL early in the show. I mean, if they're divvying out the dollars and cents, I think this year has taught you that you need to get a really good center out there. Yeah, no, with the 3 touchdowns, obviously those all came in the second quarter, no interception. So whether that fumble goes down as a turnover for Sims or not, there were no real, drive killers or pick sixes or things that just interrupted the momentum of the game. The fact that we're kind of debating whether or not he had a turnover, okay, I think we're, that's an improvement there. And again,
Nebraska fans pulling their hair out.
Exactly right. Remembering that, as we talked about last week, West Virginia top 20 in the country in turnovers forced. So like that is not, that's kind of just a snafu on ASU's part, not real true forced turnover. So yeah, I mean, what Sim's done, great stuff. For Leek Brown, it's been kind of interesting. The last several games, you look at his numbers, and they're pretty consistent. He's been like in the 50s and 60s rushing yardage wise. Yeah, I mean, a real solid game for Derek Eusebio. Great for him to get a touchdown. I mean, flipping over to some things that were, kind of concerning especially on the West Virginia side. Scotty Fox, a true freshman, 353 passing yards on 19 completions. That's getting in
5 on 2 plays.
That's getting in the ballpark of like, not terribly far from like 20 yards per completion, which is wild. And yeah, as you mentioned, like half of them came on two completions. He didn't get anything on the ground. 7 yards on 16 carries. Neither did West Virginia. 68 yards on 39 carries. That's 1.7 net yards per carry with the 1 touchdown. I mean, again, in the past game, you had nearly half of it come on those 2 plays right there. So, all in all, it was just a strange game. If we're looking toward the defense, let's see what else we can talk about. I mean, the linebacker duo, just real solid stuff. Jordan Crook obviously got Pac-12. Goodness gracious. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week honors with his 14 tackles. Keyshaun Elliott had a really important sack there. Ghost Rouser, 9 tackles. Watley with a key sack. Anthony Cooper had a big one as well. That interception by Keith Abney obviously sealed it there. And as we talked about, Canyon Floyd, when Canyon Floyd's in the game punting and he's healthy, at least the punter side of the exchange. Now we've seen just all facets of special teams, like just because your punter kicks the ball and punts the ball well, doesn't mean that the entire punting scenario will be successful, but at least it helps the odds. So that's encouraging there. So again, at this point in the season where ASU is with their goals still on the table, winning by any means necessary is great. It would be wonderful just to have a game where more than 30 points are scored by Arizona State and the margin of victory is a double-digit number. That seems like not a very lofty, Christmas wish list to hope to come to fruition. Now, before we go behind enemy lines to learn about the Colorado Buffaloes, this one is for the homies. If you want a restaurant as passionate about sporting Sun Devil athletics as you are, well, then you got to make Burrito Express your local burrito joint. Burrito Express began with a vision, a family-run Mexican restaurant serving authentic food with fast, friendly service and deep community roots, making Burrito Express a true multi-generational, family-led legacy. From the beginning, it's always been about flavor, family, and the people they serve at Burrito Express. Burrito Express is more than just a place to eat. They're part of the neighborhood, and as you know by now, a strong figure in the Sun Devil community. From day one, they focused on bold flavors, fast service, and real connections with the communities they serve. It's that mix of quality, culture, and care that makes Burrito Express different. Burrito Express delivers bold flavor, fast service, and hometown pride in every bite. You can order online for pickup or delivery and fuel up with real deal burritos made fresh daily across the valley. You can visit any of their 9 locations, 2 of which are fast and fresh restaurants located in Circle K stores. You can find Burrito Express in Tempe, Scottsdale, Chandler, Gilbert, and Queen Creek. Most locations are open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays, while some locations are open 6 to 3 during the week and 7 to 3 on weekends. Check them out online at theburritoexpress.com and follow them on social media at BurritoEXP on Twitter and Instagram, Burrito Express AZ on TikTok, and on Facebook at facebook.com/yourlocalburritojoint.
Joining the program now to give us an inside look at Colorado, returning to the program, is Brian Howell. He's a beat writer for Buffzone and the Boulder Daily Camera. Brian, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, so looking back, kind of macro view to start things off, kind of entering this season, a great deal of roster turnover with Colorado and the Buffalo squad. Of course, losing a Heisman Trophy winner at the top of that list. Right now with a 3-7 record through these first 10 games, how does the season so far compare to perhaps some of the preseason expectations with this new look Buffalo squad?
Yeah, definitely a disappointment. I mean, I think underachieve would be the key word over there. They really felt, and I believe this should be a bowl team. I mean, I think this is a team that should have 5 wins by now. Be a 5-5 or 6-4 type of team. I mean, they've obviously they had that 2-game stretch where they got blown out, but I mean, before that, they're really in every game, and they really they could have or should have beat BYU, could have beat Georgia Tech, could have beat TCU. So they've been right there in a lot of games, but the season just hasn't gone the way they want. I mean, guys haven't stepped up that they thought would step up.
So how is the fan base and perhaps the Deion fan base? How have those maybe handled this kind of disappointment season? And kind of what's the fan base kind of reception for Coach Prime at this point?
Yeah, it's pretty mixed. I mean, certainly for the most part, people are still behind him, but sports fans in Colorado have always been it's Broncos and then whoever's winning. And so if you're not the Broncos and you're not winning, you're not going to get as much support. And so, the Buffs' last home game was against Arizona. That was the lowest attendance of the Coach Prime era. I would not be surprised if this Saturday with Arizona State is even lower, in part because students can go home. And from what I was told, the student claim number is pretty low. If the Buffs were 7-3, that'd probably be a pretty high number, but it's not. So, I think certainly people are not as high on the Buffs right now, and there's not as much excitement. The last couple of years, when the doors would open, the students would pour into Folsom Field because they wanted to watch Shador and Travis warm up and all those guys. And now it's a very, very slow trickle, and the fans will settle in by about kickoff. And so it's a very different vibe around there.
All right, so let's let me start off looking at the offense right now. And recently looks like there was a change of play caller. Now, how has that maybe impacted the offense in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it was hard to tell the first week. We learned about it afterwards, but they changed a play caller before the Arizona game and then lost 52-17. So it didn't seem to change much. I think what's a little bit different is, they also changed their quarterback. Julian Lewis is now their quarterback, the freshman. He's a different quarterback than Caden Salter. Brett Bartoloni is more involved. He's the tight ends coach. He's more involved in the play calling. We're seeing a little bit more tight end involvement. And Julian Lewis is a better thrower of the football than Caden Salter. So there's a little bit more of those downfield shots than what we saw before.
You mentioned, Caden Salter comes in as a high-profile transfer. Julian Lewis coming in as a high-profile recruit. What were some of the reasons maybe Salter struggled so far this year? And then, what has Lewis been added to this offense? Obviously, a very high upside player.
Yeah, with Salter, it's hard to figure out. He's so talented. I mean, he was a highly recruited guy coming out of high school, and was the Conference USA Player of the Year 2 years ago at Liberty. Didn't have as good of a year last year. He played well in some games early this year, but he's either been pretty good or just disastrous, and he had 2 disastrous games in a row. I mean, he was against Iowa State when they beat them right before their first bye. He was phenomenal. They come out of the bye, and he was terrible against Utah, and then against Arizona, gets benched against Arizona. I'm not sure we'll see him again. He was so bad, and I think it's a confidence issue probably. I don't think there's a lot of leadership out of not just that position, but around the whole team. I mean, that's a big issue around the whole team. What Julian is he's more like Shador. He's that big arm. He's going to get the ball down the field. He's not a runner, but he can run if he needs to. And so it's a little bit different look, certainly with Julian Lewis.
Since Deion came to Boulder, it seems like the ground game hasn't really been too much of an emphasis, going mostly through the air. What's the kind of the current state of the rushing attack, and who are some of the names to know?
Yeah, definitely more of an emphasis this year. Last 2 years, they were last in the country in rushing. This year, they're near the bottom of the Big 12, but it's still, if you add up the last 2 years combined, it's almost the same number as this year. So they're rushing for almost twice as many yards as last year. And there's a lot of games where they have more rushing attempts than passing attempts. So it's definitely more of an emphasis. And there's no one standout back, but they've had some different guys. And Dallin Hayden has been solid at times. Michael Welch has been solid at times. They've moved 2 guys that started off this season at wide receiver, Cam Michael and Draylon Miller. They're now running backs. And so because they had 2 other running backs get hurt and haven't been playing the last several weeks. So it's an interesting backfield because it's not what we thought it was going to look like, and it's nobody's going to rush for 100 yards. There might not be anybody that rush for 70 yards. So, but you're going to have probably 3 or 4 different guys that get 7 to 8 carries, and then finish with 50 yards. So that's kind of what they do, is kind of rotation of backs, and if the line's blocking well, they'll get some production out of that.
And when Juju Lewis throws the ball around, it looks like Marion Miller's been a target, over 100 yards last week or in their last game. Who are some other names to know in that passing attack that the ASU secondary's got to deal with?
Yeah, Marion's been the top target, but Joseph Williams is really a star. I mean, he would have some big numbers if the passing game was more prolific. He was the freshman of the year in the American Conference last year at Tulsa, and playing really well. But those are really the top 2. They've got other talented guys, but they've really leaned on those 2. Sincere Brown has been a deep threat for them. He had 1,000 yards last year at Campbell. Hasn't been consistent this year, but he's caught some big deep balls. And then they got guys like Draylon Miller will still line up at a receiver. Isaiah Hard sometimes. So Quentin Gibson is he was the Max Preps National Player of the Year last year, and he'll get the ball quite a bit as well. So there's some guys that have some talent, but they haven't really busted loose a lot this year.
Seems that recently there's been some injuries along the offensive line, and looking at kind of the yards per carry, sacks, and TFL's allowed number, it seems like it could paint a picture of an offensive line maybe struggling a little bit over the course of the season. What's been your evaluation of the Buffaloes along the offensive line?
It's been pretty solid most of the year. They have had some injuries lately. Jordan Seaton, their star left tackle, missed the game at West Virginia. That's the first game he's ever missed. And the combination of him being out, they were missing both their tackles, and so they had guys playing out of position. So the combination of that and a true freshman getting his first start, West Virginia just kind of pinned its ears back and got 7 sacks against Julian Lewis. So that might be the recipe for Arizona State this week. I don't know if Seaton will be back. We haven't talked to Coach Prime since post game at West Virginia, so I don't know if he'll be back or not. But they've had some injuries, but it's been a better offensive line. This has been CU's best offensive line under Coach Prime. It's just they're starting to get a little banged up late in the year.
And switching over to the defensive side of the ball, what are some of the things that Colorado's defense really likes to do from a schematic perspective?
Well, what they like to do is give up big plays, apparently. Now, they certainly don't like to do that. It's been a struggle defensively. I mean, that group we thought was going to be pretty solid. They lost a bunch of guys from last year, but we thought they brought in a lot of really good guys, and ultimately they just missed on a lot of guys in the portal, and it's been kind of a struggle at times. But they'll still play a lot of man in coverage. They got a defensive line that can get after it and stop the run on running backs, but they've been banged up too, and so they're pretty decent on stopping running backs. But where they're really vulnerable is stopping the running quarterback, and that's not a good recipe this week.
That's true. So it kind of leads into my next question. When you look at the totality of the defensive effort so far this year, what are some areas that they've done well, and then on the flip side, perhaps outside of stopping running quarterbacks, some areas that they've struggled?
Yeah, I mean, they've actually done a decent job in pass coverage, even though their corners have been called for too many penalties, and but the overall numbers, they haven't been terrible. But giving against the run, they've been pretty bad. But a lot of it is those running quarterbacks. I mean, Haynes King of Georgia Tech ran all over them. Bird Ficklin of Utah, making his first start a couple weeks ago, just ran all over them. So I'm sure Jeff Sims is watching some of those tapes and be like, this is gonna be a fun game for me. So they've been really and they've always struggled against the run with running quarterbacks, and so Khalil Tate several years ago at Arizona. They've always struggled with that. They've never seemed to figure that out. But they've got a couple guys that are playing well in recent weeks, like a Jeremiah Brown, an inside linebacker. Ivan Yates has played okay at corner. Tawfiq Bayard has probably been their best player on defense at safety, and he's done a pretty good job actually covering tight ends and sometimes spying the quarterback as well. So he's a guy to watch out for, is Tawfiq Bayard.
And so that kind of leads into my next question as well. When you kind of look at the offense and the defense, who's one guy on each side of the ball, maybe a little bit under the radar, but you think could play a key role in deciding Saturday's outcome?
Yeah, I'm going to go a couple guys we've mentioned already, but I think Joseph Williams is one on offense to really keep an eye on, because Omarion Miller has been putting up the stats lately. He had his first 100-yard game of the season at West Virginia. He has been Julian's top target since he got in there. But Joseph Williams, he could take advantage of that and have a big day. And then defensively, I'll go with somebody different that I haven't mentioned. Arden Walker is a kid that grew up in Denver, one of the few guys on this team that actually grew up in Colorado. His father was a Buff and played for the 1990 national title team. And this is his last game at home. And so he could be motivated for senior day. And he's one of their top pass rushers. So he's a guy that, he doesn't have the numbers this year, but he's a guy that could wreak some havoc if he comes out and plays a good game.
Now, with the bowl eligibility kind of no longer on the table after the loss there, what do you think the kind of the state of mind, the team mentality is of this Buffalo squad right now? Obviously kind of rallying around some of the younger players over these last couple games.
I think that's the biggest question around this team is what is the state of mind? I think even Coach Prime would say that. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the leadership on this team. That's kind of been a question all year, is what is the state of mind of this team? And, coming off the first bye, this is going to be kind of a long answer, but coming off the first bye, they had just beaten Iowa State, first really big win. You get some momentum going into the bye, and then you come out of it and you get blown out 2 weeks in a row. And so then you think, well, they're going to pack it in. And then they go out and they almost beat West Virginia and played fairly well. But they had that bowl game carrot last week against West Virginia. Now they don't. And so I think we're all curious to see how motivated is this team over these next 2 weeks to play well. And are they trying to put some film out there for the portal? Are they trying to win games? What are they doing? Honestly, I can't answer that question because I don't think any of us know. And I think that first quarter is going to tell us a lot about, is this team wanting to play? Are they ready to play? Or have they packed it in?
Ultimately, Deion Sanders has been dealing with some very, serious health issues over the last couple of years. And then, of course, with his sons now no longer with the program. What is his long-term future? Do you think he's in it for the long haul, or do you think, kind of all the factors combined might mean that, he may be moving on from Boulder in the near future?
Well, I don't ever say long haul with him because I think that it's going to be a yearly discussion. But I do believe he's going to be here in 2026. And, just last week, athletic director Rick George announced that he's going to step down at the end of this school year. He and Coach Prime are very close, but I chatted with Rick George today, and he firmly believes that Coach Prime is committed to the Buffs and is going to be here. And so the only long term I can give you is 1 year, because I think it is going to be a yearly discussion. But at this point in time, I would say I would expect Coach Prime to be here in 2026.
Well, Brian, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your expertise and insight into Colorado. It should be a fun one on Saturday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Now, while many ASU stores have come and gone, Cactus Sports is a community staple. Founded, owned, and operated by ASU alumni since 1992, every purchase made through Cactus Sports results in royalties that help support Arizona State University. Many of their competitors have been bought out and operated by out-of-state corporations, while Cactus Sports stays locally owned and operated. They consider it a privilege to be able to work together with their guests, alumni, fans, and students who help give input for some of the products Cactus Sports buys. When you purchase from Cactus Sports, not only are you assured of the highest quality officially licensed merchandise, you also have the satisfaction of knowing that you truly help support a local, small, ASU-owned small business. I'm thinking, maybe do we got to get some Cam Scattaboo WWE merchandise in Cactus Sports after his appearance on Monday Night Raw, brother? Hey, we'll have to see about it. Cactus Sports, located at 514 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and Sundays from 10 to 6. You can also view their full inventory and shop online at cactussports.com. Check this out. You get free domestic ground shipping of orders of $75 or more. If you're going to be loading up on Sun Devil gear for the holidays, number one, get your shopping out of the way early. Go ahead and do that now. And if you're loading up $75 or more, you can get some free shipping. How about that? Be sure to also follow Cactus Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Cactus Sports AZ, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cactus Sports AZ. Locally owned and ASU alumni operated since 1992. Shop at Cactus Sports and think local, buy local, be local. Well, Brad, we are gearing up for the final road trip of the 2025 season, at least in a true road game for Arizona State University, as the Sun Devils make the voyage to Boulder, Colorado to face the Buffaloes. This is a game that, CU was tough to peg in the preseason, but I really think that, a couple months ago before things went live, kind of thought that this game might have a little bit more on the line than it does, at least for both teams.
Yeah, I think that this Colorado team obviously had some good moments last year. Had the Heisman Trophy winner, lost a lot, and just I think year after year you're seeing such a significant churn up there. A lot of new faces, but I will say that they've been able to bring some talent there. Retention's a different story, but yeah, just really hasn't gone with the Buffalo's way. And after their most recent loss, the bowl eligibility is off the table. It's going to be really interesting to exactly see, what this team is, how motivated they are. And, they have a quarterback with exciting potential. They made some changes on the coaching staff in terms of responsibilities. Coach, Deion Sanders has really dealt with a lot of medical issues. It's just been a really, really all-encompassingly weird year. But, yeah, when you go on the road, that's a place where ASU has had some issues in recent years. So we'll see. You can't take anything for granted. As this conference has repeatedly told us and driven the point home, you can't overlook anybody.
Absolutely. So this will be the 14th all-time meeting between ASU and Colorado. The Sun Devils hold a 9-4 edge, though they have lost 3 of the last 5 and 4 of the last 7 after winning each of the first 7 meetings. Now, all the games between these two teams have been within about the last 20 years. The first was a non-conference game in 2006. And then obviously things became basically an every year affair for the most part when Colorado joined the Pac-12 in 2011. But obviously these two teams did not play last year. The last time they met was in Tempe in 2023. Pretty heartbreaking affair for the Sun Devils in that game. As I mentioned, entering this year at CU, real tough to peg as far as what to expect out of them. I know Ralph was fairly high on them. I think he felt like they had, the potential to at least compete in the competition of things for the conference championship. You named some of the folks that they lost. Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter, the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year Shadir Sanders, all-conference defensive lineman BJ Green, who of course came over from Arizona State. A host of others departed. So a lot of folks wondered, in this third year of Deion Sanders at the helm for Colorado, would he be able to reload? How would I had my concerns, what would his relationship be like with his quarterback when it's not his son? And when he doesn't have, another son and a player like Travis Hunter that was kind of like a family member, when he doesn't have those really close, like blood family or near family members as part of the program, how does that affect, his coaching and the overall potency of the team? And so, so far, not so good. The Buffaloes started off 2-2. They alternated losses and wins. They had defeats to Georgia Tech and Houston. That's no real shame in losing to those teams. Obviously, ASU lost to Houston. They had wins over Delaware and Wyoming, but from that point, Colorado lost 5 out of 6, only an upset win over a ranked Iowa State team on October 11th as the lone victory that the Buffaloes have had since September 20th. You talked about it, they're bowl ineligible, 3-7. And they have this game at home against ASU, and then they travel to Kansas State. So, things for them. They're looking at a ceiling of 5 wins, or possibly maybe even, 3 or 4, which is kind of right in the realm of where things were when Deion Sanders took over. So, it's from the outside looking in, it kind of feels like the bloom's off the rose. Kind of feels like last year was really that opportunity for them to strike with the talent that they had. That's, it's not to say that they can't reload for the future, but it does seem like it was like a quick up and down, and who knows what the long-term future is going to look like of this program.
Earlier today, he addressed the media and kind of made his case and said that he plans to be back, and that to just give him more time, that he feels that confident in the direction of the program. And of course, he's been battling his own health issues. He's been battling, I believe, he had a cancer scare, had his bladder removed. Of course, some a number of different things have cropped up in the last couple of years. The athletic director at Colorado is retiring, and he and Deion have had a close relationship, but he says he's going to forge on. I believe he signed a 5-year extension this past spring. So, of course, contracts in this industry, whatever, but definitely kind of in a battled situation. And yeah, just, they have basically turned over the roster kind of almost each and every year by and large, but they have been able to bring in some high calibers. A lot of blue chip guys have that allure to play with Coach Sanders, and we'll see one of them out there on Saturday night at quarterback in Juju Lewis. But overall, it's just been one of those years. Sometimes programs just you have a lot of injuries or some things don't go your way, and they have a reset year. I mean, it's just success is hard to sustain in this sport, but right now there's a lot of different things kind of surrounding the program that I think add definitely issues and legitimate questions in terms of just like how long this regime can go.
Yeah. And you talked about quarterback and the youngster there, and we'll talk all about that because that's who ASU is going to be facing. But entering the season, Colorado thought their starter was going to be Caden Salter, who came over after a statistically very good career at Liberty. Started 8 of the first 9 games. He was a very seasoned quarterback, and especially a couple years ago had an outstanding season. Like, he was someone that could have come into that program and just kind of kept things chugging along where Shedeur Sanders left off, but it just wasn't meant to be. He started 8 of the first 9 games. 1,242 passing yards, 239 rushing yards, 10 touchdown throws, 6 interceptions, second leading rusher on the team, still to this day leads the team with 5 rushing touchdowns. But just the, turnovers, the high level playmaking just wasn't there. And, they ultimately they have started a total of 3 quarterbacks at this point this year. But Salter, again, someone who is a very experienced quarterback, has basically gotten a seat on the bench in favor of a true freshman who's only played in just a few games.
Yeah, and I believe it was Ryan Staub got a start in there. It was kind of like, at that time, a lot of folks, wasn't injury related. And it was kind of interesting because Staub's not a guy that's been kind of around, one of those few guys that's kind of lingered around the program for a couple of years, but then went back. And now, they've handed the reins over, and it looks like Juju Lewis, for a 5-star prospect freshman, is a lot of exciting potential coming off a game against West Virginia a couple weeks ago before their bye that was highly productive. Didn't quite get a win, but it's interesting, the management there. And then, of course, they've had some issues with the play caller changing from Pat Shermer to Brett Bartolone, their tight ends coach. That was kind of a move that was made, not announced. And then they went and got blown out by Arizona, but they had better results against West Virginia. Just, a lot of different moving parts. And of course, through all this has been a host of injuries, as ASU fans can certainly sympathize with a little bit.
So let's talk about QB1 for Colorado, Julian Juju Lewis. He was a 5-star, number 10 overall recruit for the 2025 class, number 3 quarterback in the nation. Here's where it gets a little interesting. Right now, he's only played in 3 games with 1 start. As you all know, players can play up to and including 4 games, and they can still redshirt. Colorado has 2 games. It won't be 3 or more. It'll be 2. So if he plays just these final 2 games, whether he starts or plays at all, he's going to burn his red shirt by 1 game. Not that there's really any, rooting interest from this side in that, but man, when you have a true freshman who's a 5-star recruit who, for a team that is not going to go anywhere, that just seems like a really weird situation. Now, then, we're not in the rooms. It could be Lewis himself saying, I don't care. I want to be the guy. I want to play. It could very well be that. But man, when you have someone as like this, with this sort of pedigree, this sort of background, to burn a red shirt by 1 game for a team that's not going to the postseason. Again, it'd be one thing if they're on track for, a conference championship bid and they lost their quarterback and they just got to put somebody out there to keep things afloat. But this scenario just seems weird to me.
It is a little weird. Lewis has said that he wants to play ball, that he's there, but I think this is where a coaching staff, if you are having that intention, like Deion says, to come back next year, maybe you gotta protect the player from himself, throw Staub or Salter in there because you're going on the road, to finish off the season in a game that doesn't mean anything for you at Kansas State. You've seen the flashes of Lewis, and you know that he's going to be your guy in 2026, and hope in their case, hopefully for a few more years. So yeah, maybe you don't want to throw him out there and just kind of burn that that red shirt on 3 starts and some mop up duty, but we'll see. But I think when he's been on the field, he's definitely shown the ability to attack the ball deep. Marion Miller, their top receiver, develop some quick chemistry there. He's a guy who can make some plays with his feet if called upon. So I think it'll be it's certainly not a situation where ASU's defense can come in and overlook, because we've seen them even far less touted and talented quarterbacks in years past, where an ASU defense maybe comes in and they're facing a backup or a young freshman, and they make him look good. So you certainly don't want to overlook a guy with a 5-star pedigree.
This is a weird thing, but I wonder when the last time or how long ago it's been since ASU played back-to-back true freshman starting quarterbacks, because that's what we're seeing.
Sun Devil Science to the rescue.
I'm gonna have to jump into it. So here's some numbers on him. He made his first start November 8th. Colorado had a bye week last week. Close loss to West Virginia. They only lost by a touchdown. He completed 22 of 35 passes for 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 7 times. Ended up with negative 39 net rushing yards. So outside that game, he's completed 11 of 21 passes with a touchdown and 8 net rushing yards in appearances against Delaware and Arizona. So again, the second straight true freshman ASU will faced, and Lewis is someone that had a much higher pedigree than Scotty Fox, and that's not being disrespectful to him. It's just that Juju Lewis is like the number 10 overall player in the country. Not a lot of guys are ranked higher than him for 2025, and ASU let Fox throw for quite a few yards. So hopefully learn that lesson and can clamp down more on this true freshman. Moving over to the rush game, I use that word very, that's technically they have a run game, technically,
and it's been better than the previous 2, which really it speaks to how little Deion teams have run the ball.
Yeah. So Micah Welch leads the team, 81 carries, 313 yards. That's a little under 4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. His best days of the year, he had 64 yards against Georgia Tech, 67 in back-to-back. He had 67 in 2 straight games against Wyoming and BYU, but in the last 4 games, he hasn't exceeded 32 net rushing yards. Dallin Hayden, 45 carries, 195 yards, no touchdowns. He's gotten more looks recently. He's got 19 combined carries in the past 2 games, whereas Welch has 13 in that stretch. Hayden had a season-high 61 rushing yards against TCU. Welch and Hayden combined for 13 total receptions, no touchdowns, so not huge threats in the receiving game. Colorado has not had a 100-yard rusher since before Deion Sanders arrived. November of 2022 was the last time any runner for the Colorado football program exceeded 100 rushing yards in a game.
Yeah, and their backfield has really been battling a lot of injuries. They've moved a couple of guys from receiver to help bolster the backfield there. But yeah, it's going to be, there's not one lead guy. There's not going to be a guy that gets a ton of carries and not necessarily going to be worried about putting up big numbers on you. ASU's rush defense really put the clamps down. I thought did a great job against West Virginia, a team that has success running the ball, that is going to run the ball. So I think ASU is well positioned here. ASU's defensive line has been playing pretty well. We'll get to the Colorado offensive line issues there in a moment. But yeah, just they've been trying to kind of mix and match and just kind of plug holes with whoever healthy bodies they have. And mentioned Lewis is also a guy that can run, but it's not necessarily in that like Scotty Fox type of mold. That's not going to be a guy that is a real big threat to run. But you also you can't lose track of him. But I think overall, this is this ground game matchup on that side of the ball, I think favors ASU.
So at wide receiver, Marion Miller, you mentioned him earlier. He's head and shoulders the leading receiver, probably the top player on the team as a whole. 34 receptions, 652 yards, 7 touchdowns. Enters this game with some momentum. He's had his two best games of the year in Colorado's last 2 games. He had 91 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns against Arizona and 131 yards with a score against West Virginia. Currently ranks 40th in the nation in receiving yards per game. 14th, he's tied for 14th nationally in touchdown catches. Joseph Williams, 30 receptions, 450 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had 128 receiving yards with a touchdown against Iowa State. Sincere Brown has 18 catches, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 120 yards with a touchdown in the opener against Delaware, but has only had 1 game since then with more than 27 receiving yards. No other player on the roster even has 150 receiving yards on the year. So, very different from what we've seen the last couple of years where they were just throwing the ball all over the place and a lot of guys getting involved. Offensive line, the numbers are very, very bad, but they do have one of the better offensive linemen in the country in tackle Jordan Seaton. He was, I believe, a 5-star recruit last year, started as a true freshman. He's someone that, You're starting to see the rumors and the tea leaves and the, we talked about with Sam Leavitt, like these transfer, who's going to be the next guys to transfer, and his name's thrown out there, not necessarily from anything that he's said or his camp is, publicized, but just he's playing on a team that's losing a lot of games, and, he has a chance to be a big time player. So the offensive line, we'll break down like the team numbers offensively, but they have been having a real tough time.
Yeah, they just coming off a game, and as you mentioned, against West Virginia, which 7 sacks allowed. But some of that's a true freshman quarterback, but also Seton and their starting right tackle missed that game due to injury. They've also, like ASU, been battling some injuries, so they're kind of piecemealing it together. No word yet on whether Seton will return to the lineup. As we record this on Tuesday night, we will see. But again, this has got to be an area where ASU's front six really kind of controls things in the trenches. The defensive line has been playing really well. Justin Watley has been a guy that's been really kind of on a tear as of late. And of course, ASU's run defense, could make this a game where it makes Colorado a little bit, I guess, say more one-dimensional, because they already pretty much one-dimensional. Like they run to a degree, but definitely are trying to their best chance is going to have to be through the air, and they have some good receiving weapons as well, and as we mentioned, a talented quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see exactly the success of it. I don't necessarily think the ASU needs to go out there and get 7 sacks against Colorado like West Virginia did. It'd be a lot cooler, if they did. But just making that consistent pressure, you're facing a guy that is going to be making his second career start. So I think right there, you look at the situation where the Sun Devil defense, all but one game, I thought, been playing pretty well. And so you have some matchups that you'd like to see. ASU secondary has been playing some good ball. So it'd be a good challenge, but I think one that ASU is well equipped for.
So just jumping into some of the team stats, national rankings, that sort of thing. I mean, they're in the lower half of the country, if not like the bottom 10 to 20 in virtually everything. But there's just one that stands out the other directions. They're 19th in the country in red zone offense as far as just like converting red zone opportunities for points. But they have only had 26 red zone attempts, it's considerably lower than the others where they're around. So they're not really getting into the red zone a lot, but when they get there, they tend to score points. So elsewhere, I mean, 88th in the country in pass offense, 98th in time of possession, and then some of them get even worse. They're worse than 100th in several key categories. 106th in the country in scoring offense, 22 points a game. Tied for 106th in rush offense. 110th in total offense, and then some of these areas that really highlight the struggles of the offensive line. Tied for 124th in sacks allowed per game, and 132nd. There are only 134 teams in tackles for loss allowed. Only Michigan State and Rice allow more tackles for loss per game than the 7.9 per game that Colorado allows. So again, you've got some players with some talent. You got a quarterback that in a couple years could possibly be, something special. You got like an offensive tackle, if he's healthy, is going to be probably a first-round pick, and a wide receiver that's good. But all things considered, just for the offense, it just really hasn't been coming together to where there's any particular like area or particular player, maybe with the exception of Miller, that you can highlight and say, well, at least he or this group is doing their job. A lot of struggles on offense.
I'll get really annoying and get in their defense a little bit. It's actually 136 now, Delaware and Missouri State.
Do they count for the stats?
Yeah.
Okay. Because everything that I see, because I used to go by the NCAA site, and they must have something where they may not count it for stat. I don't know if there are any other teams that are like transitional.
But yeah, I mean, even, so there's.
But they might be, are they ahead of them? So are they even worse?
That's true. I guess they could have been if that site's not listing them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, a lot of triple digit rankings equate to an offense that is struggling to find its way, and you don't want them to find their way or to find some light against you and against. I don't think that'll happen, as we'll get to. But yeah, they have been having a real rough go. But there's some talent there, Joe. But man, like you said, it's looking hard, and especially now with the bowl eligibility and the bowl possibility whisked away off the table. Are they just going to be trying to, kind of like we saw with AC in 2016, just get this season over?
Yeah. So flipping over to the defense, Tawfik Bard, he has a team high 77 tackles and interception, 4.5 tackles for loss. Jeremiah Brown, second on the team with 65 tackles, team high 7.5 tackles for loss, second on the team with 2 sacks. Arden Walker, Keaton Wade share the team high of 2.5 sacks Wade also ranks second on the team with 7 TFLs, leads the team with 9 quarterback hurries. Preston Hodge is just kind of a weird anomaly statistically. He has a team high 12 pass breakups, ties for second best in the nation. Only 2 players have 13 pass breakups, and he leads the Big 12 in that category. Keith Abney, not far behind with 11 PBUs, but yeah, just like kind of a weird anomaly for, like a team that isn't really known for defense. And it's, again, not necessarily an individual player that is that defensive star that, is at least he's going to do his job, but that's something good there. And that's something to, to account for. There are some defensive categories, and I'll go again. The rankings will be on the resource that I got to dive into that and see. Maybe there's some weird technicality about like the NCAA proper not count. Like if you can't be bowl eligible, I wonder if that's something where they like don't factor that in if you're like one of those trans, because that's where Missouri State is, right? Because aren't they trying to see if they can get bowl eligible? Like they're trying to
something like that.
Yeah. So we'll see. But anyhow, using the numbers that I use, we'll see if, TBD if they're correct or not. The defense, they rank 48th in the country in third down defense, 52nd in red zone defense, 55th against the pass. You're not awful there. Now then, things get a little worse as you go down, and there are someone that are really bad. Scoring defense tied for 106. They allow 30 points per game. This would be a great opportunity for ASU to score 30 points for the first time, it seems like, since last year. They are 118th in total defense, tied for 122nd in team sacks. And again, according to the numbers that I have, and this is one that I think plays a heck of a lot into ASU's favor, 131st and the worst power conference team in the nation in rush defense, allowing just a hair under 211 rushing yards per game. On the road, cold weather, Jeff Sims at quarterback. That statistic alone got to be real appealing.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I understand why maybe teams don't want to throw the ball a lot when you can run on Ralphie. And also, I think you have an offensive line that is still kind of finding their way a little bit in terms of finding the consistency in the pass protection for the Sun Devils. And when you have you mentioned it, the pass rush numbers there for Colorado, not great, just like 12 sacks as a team. But then also a team that's been shown some big vulnerabilities against the run. You have this offense now has some good momentum and kind of crafting that game plan around their mobile quarterback, a running back that perhaps is maybe has scuffled a little bit in recent weeks. Maybe this is time to get Raleek Brown back on track, or maybe you see a little bit more Demarius Man Robinson get going a little bit. But I think this is a defense that, man, it's I think on the road it's going to be a little bit tougher. But I think if you can't crack 30, against these guys, or push the upper 20s and maybe have some more consistency and not just have one great quarter and then 3 kind of struggling quarters with your offense. I think this should be a situation where ASU is kind of in control and controlling the tempo of the game.
Now, before we give you our keys to the game and our scoreboard predictions, a key to your existence, of course, is to be a subscriber at devilsdigest.com. You get premium content on the Rivals Network, on the On3 Network, and heck, today's news that dropped that we talked about, that was released by On3. So there was quite a bit of discussion on the Devil's Digest message board about that. And we're in that time of year where there's a lot going on. You're getting great coverage on Sun Devil men's basketball in addition to football. Signing day is going to be here. The transfer portal could be a newsworthy one in a lot of different directions for ASU. So you got to be locked in. You got to be logged on. You got to be a member. You got to collect all the information that you can. You can't just get that on social media or chatting with your buddies in a group text. The only way you can really get there is to be a subscriber at devilsdigest.com. So go ahead to Devil's Digest, subscribe, get one for your friends and family. The holidays are coming. Do your shopping at Cactus Sports and devilsdigest.com. You will not regret it. You'll learn a ton about Sun Devil athletics. Always a great time to be locked in to the message board at devilsdigest.com. So my first key, and this is something I don't even know if we've really talked about this at all this year. Seen some stuff on message boards, seen some stuff on social media, but man, this is really becoming a thing. And I broke down the numbers and it's bad. And that's ASU's first quarter scoring this season is absolutely atrocious. ASU has only scored 2 first quarter touchdowns this entire season.
Wow.
And they came in the same game. And it was the first game of the season against Northern Arizona. ASU has not scored a first quarter touchdown since the NAU game. ASU has scored 29 total first quarter points this year. That's 2.9 points per first quarter per game. On 4 occasions, including 2 of the last 3 games, including this past week, ASU has been held scoreless in the first quarter. So overall, ASU hasn't scored more than 3 points in a first quarter since the opener. And if you don't count the NAU game, ASU scored 15 points in the last 9 first quarters.
Eek.
It is wild that ASU is in the position that they're in, given that general set of statistics. So making that a key to this game, it is inexcusable not to score at least 7 points in the first quarter against Colorado. If ASU is getting off to a lethargic start in this game against the Colorado defense, where we just broke down how bad they are at a lot of things and how the offense isn't too much better, if you're getting out of those first 15 minutes of the ball game without at least a 7 on the board for ASU, that's just a really concerning sign. And again, like I talked about earlier, when you talk about these concerns and how they project, if this were the first month of the season, you're thinking about what's it going to be like in November if you keep doing this. Now it's just realistically, like, how is ASU going to put itself in the best possible position to win the Territorial Cup game? And you want to have things trending in the most positive directions that you possibly can. But yeah, that figure alone has just been so wild to me, that ASU is 7-3 and they've had such struggles in the first quarter. Obviously, it's a testament to their halftime adjustments and things like that. But man, that's got to clean up. And there's just quite literally no better game than the opportunity they'll have this Saturday. It would be wonderful for them to just, get like 17-0 after the first quarter. My goodness, that would be a dream come true.
I think, my first key will be a big part of that. The run pass balance that we've seen over the last couple games with Jeff Sims at the helm and against Iowa State, taking those shots downfield, I thought kept things that Iowa State defense honest and kept that ground game open for the Devils. And I thought that, continued again, finding Derek Eusebio, Shimon Mate, or Jalen Moss getting involved there. And then, they didn't have the huge numbers. He didn't have his jersey from the last week hanging up in the Hall of Fame again. But I thought that, just having that balance against a defense that really hasn't been good at any one area overall is going to be key. I'd like to see Jeff Sims get things started off, getting that rhythm and flow. Yeah, hit some passes early on. Obviously, they're going to run the ball. They're going to get creative with the QB run game. I'd like to see, Rick Brown, as mentioned a moment ago, just try to get back on track a little bit. So I think having that balance will help ASU perhaps, get going early, get a 7 on there at least. But, also, continue to have that success against a defense that's been giving it up in many different ways.
Key number 2 for me, this is definitely a knee-jerk reaction to last week, and that is just no big plays. I mean, if you take away those individual big plays, I feel like West Virginia, the odds of them scoring on those drives, fairly low. So if you take away that 75-yarder and that 90-yarder that West Virginia scored on, then ASU probably wins this game by somewhere in the ballpark of like 14 to 17 points. And it's a comfortable day and a fun day for all at Mountain America Stadium. Not, this crazy situation. I don't know. Do they have NIL deals with like cardiologists and they're trying to push fans there? I don't know. Anyhow, in a game like this, where there are so many, statistical components that favor ASU, some of the great nullifiers can be big plays and turnovers. Turnovers are obviously big plays themselves. When I say big plays, like big yardage plays for the Colorado offense. So that's just something that you absolutely have to be mindful of, because I have a lot of confidence in the Sun Devil defense to be able to do their job, much, much more often than not. But it's those little breakdowns, just those one plays on a 3rd and forever, at the 10-yard line that can totally shake up a game. And so for the benefit of the game outcome, hopefully working out in ASU's favor and just overall sanity, you just want to see this be a crisp game where ASU can maybe take out some frustrations and right some ships. And just, again, and it seems weird to say on a team that's, won back-to-back games and looking for its 3rd straight win. But this is something where you just don't want to have these little, inconsistencies that can be major issues pop up. So you just want to see them clean up something that was an issue last week and eliminate those like really big plays. When I'm not saying like 30, 40 yarders, I'm talking like they're deep on the other side of the field and twisted around for a touchdown type big plays.
Colorado struggles to run the ball. Arizona State is really good at shutting down the run. So I think that will take care of itself. And I think that my number 2 key is just to kind of pin your ears back and get after Juju Lewis. He's a very talented freshman. He's going to have a great future, but make sure that good future doesn't start on Saturday. You have some pass rushers that are starting to get their mojo going a little bit. Justin Watley, especially, has been playing some really good ball lately. Prince Dorbo's now back healthy. Clayton Smith's gone about 5 weeks without a sack. It's probably a good time to get him going a little bit. Elijah O'Neal has been playing some good ball, having some interior pressure as well. This is a time where you can rattle a freshman quarterback. He's just making his second career start. It looks like he's probably not going to be able to lean on that run game to, help open things up. And if things go as we may perhaps expect or the matchups dictate, he's going to need to be dropping back and throwing the ball a lot to keep his team in the game. So get after Juju. I'm not saying that you got to get the 7 sacks that Colorado surrendered in their last outing, but I think that having a big, healthy, crooked number is going to go a long way.
So the final key for me is ASU on offense. You want to play to the numbers, play to the odds, play to the trends, but don't overdo it. At the beginning of the West Virginia game, or predating that, when we were breaking it down, we could look at the numbers and they told you pretty clearly. It's like, okay, West Virginia's pretty solid against the run, but you can throw on this team. And I thought at the beginning of the game against West Virginia, ASU was just trying to force the run, real, vanilla, and they didn't get a first, bunch of 3 and outs to start the game, and momentum got away from them. And lo and behold, you get in the second quarter and they start throwing the ball around and they scored 22 points in 1 quarter. It's like, okay, the data tells you that you should have been able to do this from the start. So entering this Colorado game, you're kind of flipping things around. As we talked about, one of the absolute worst rush defenses in all of college football. They allow an average of 211 rushing yards per game. An average. ASU is an above average rushing team. I mean, this should be a 250 to 300 yard rushing game if you're playing the numbers. So what I mean by playing to the odds is, run at them. Just you can keep it very simple. Just run the ball on them. Don't force anything through the air. You obviously want to utilize the air, but don't force it. However, don't overdo it in the sense of you got to keep guys healthy, and it's a very different set of circumstances from the Iowa State game, but I don't think anybody really wants to see Jeff Sims border on 30 carries in this game. You don't want to put your body at risk, and nor should he have to. In all reality, this is a game where hopefully you can actually maybe get him some rest. That'd be wonderful. But get the guys involved. ASU has only had 1 100-yard rushing effort from a running back in Big 12 play, and it was I think it was the TCU game that Rayleigh Brown had that rushing effort. You want to see, it'd be great to see him get over triple digits or get Man Robinson involved. Kanye Udo's been really enigmatic. I still like the way he runs, but he's just not getting much out there. This could be like, remember how things looked in like that second half against Mississippi State, where ASU was just lining up, running the ball at will and getting like 8+ yards a carry. It felt like literally every single time. This is what you could have with that. And that would be incredible in every way, because that's, demoralizing for the opposing team, gives ASU an advantage, hopefully keeps the quarterback healthy, if he's handing the ball off a fair amount. So again, just play to those numbers. Don't be unnecessarily tricky. Don't just try to air it out to see if you can catch someone slipping, unless you get it. And then if you do, then that's the brilliant move to make. But again, just play to the odds. This game has a lot of things that seem quite simple, that if you do A, B, C, and D, you should have a really high success rate of winning the game, and just running the ball is a great way to get there.
This is a game that should be pretty simple and straightforward. So my third key is simple and straightforward. No turnovers, no old Jeff Sims. We want to continue to see the current new Jeff Sims 2.0, the shiny Kenny Dillingham, Marcus Arroyo, polished up Jeff Sims. This is a game where, as long as you don't commit, crooked number in the turnover column, you should be fine. Just, keep it clean, and you're a better team. You're a more talented team. You're a more consistent team. Should take care of business.
All right, Brad, how do you see this one shaken out this weekend in Boulder, Colorado?
I think I should have just kind of copy pasted my thoughts on the West Virginia game. I think this is a game where ASU should be in control for the vast majority of it. A game where I think they're just simply better. I'll just put it that way. They have the advantage on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. They should be able to run and pass with effectiveness, as they have shown in recent weeks. The defense, I expect another very strong effort in which They are pretty much in control, and they might give up some stuff here and there, as any defense will. But for the most part, they've been doing really good in terms of just bending, but not breaking. And I just think that this is a game where ASU should not be really threatened. And I think ultimately, as they always find a way to make it a one-score game, although I do think that this will be as a result of some Colorado garbage time points. See a chance where maybe Jesus Gomez gets an opportunity in the same field in which Zane Gonzalez set the program record for the longest field goal. You got to see that thing is from 59, I believe, and just barely got over the crossbar. I think maybe you give him a chance there. I think he's going to connect twice in a 27-20 Sun Devil win.
This game is hard to predict, not necessarily who's going to win, who's going to lose, but just how it's going to go. Because if you're being really objective about it, I mean, ASU should be able to have their way with Colorado. This is a game that you can really rationalize your way to an outcome that is a score similar to like the ASU Utah game, but in favor of ASU. I mean, if you're looking at it objectively and looking at the strengths and the weaknesses and the statistics and the trends and the injuries and all things, I mean, ASU should be able to score well over 30 points, and they should be able to limit Colorado to maybe under 20. However, it is ASU, and they like to keep things, well, let's say, interesting. One-score games are very much their preference, it seems. And so it's hard to shake that. And if some of y'all might have seen the post I had on Twitter over the weekend about if you take away the Utah game, like every other Big 12 game ASU's played this year it's like Groundhog Day. Like the scores are eerily similar. Like they're all under 30. It's a close margin of victory. It's somewhere in the 20s or maybe high teens. It's just like the scores are not far off. ASU has a brand of game that it likes to play. And so I'm going to kind of lead toward that. But again, a similar narrative to like what we were talking about with last week's game, though last week's game really pushed the envelope, where I feel like this is a game that could have a final score that's not necessarily indicative of the nature of the game. Now then, it would be incredible if ASU could just wax the floor with Colorado. It'd be good to see. It would be, a day off for, the ASU fans whose heart rates might increase dramatically with these close games. And it would be awesome to see some momentum heading into that Territorial Cup game and not just another nail biter. Again, that said, I'm leaning more toward the trends of ASU plays close games. And so I see the Sun Devils being able to assert their will. I think maybe there are going to be some key important select few plays for Colorado that turn the tide. It could be like an interception or pick six or a fumble recovery in an area of the field that creates a short field for Colorado, or a special team blocker return. Just some couple big plays like we saw against West Virginia, where it really was all of two plays that kept them in the game and almost won it for West Virginia. Something like that keeps Colorado in it. But I see ASU prevailing, and I believe for the first time this year, without any sort of, prior knowledge or communication about it, Brad and I are in lockstep on this. I, too, pick a 27-20 Sun Devil victory.
All right. So as we close things up with a couple of conversations with some key ASU figures, though, but before that,
yeah, huge shout out to Sun Devil Family Charities, our great friends, 501c3 nonprofit organization created primarily for the purpose of raising funds to provide financial assistance to Arizona State University alumni, students, staff, and immediate family members adversely affected by medical issues. Their SDFC Cares program allows qualified individuals to request financial assistance by completing an application and submitting verification of medical expenses, which are then evaluated by their patient services committee. So basically what we're telling you here, as we talk about every week, if you or someone in your life, if you all have some connection to Arizona State University, current student, alumni, current or former employee, things like that, if you are facing financial hardship due to medical issues, Sun Devil Family Charities might be able to provide some assistance. So it's important that you check them out online, contact them, see how they might be able to assist you. Monetary donations are always appreciated and support those in need due to unexpected medical conditions. They also have volunteer and sponsorship opportunities. All that information and how you can perhaps seek their services, that all can be found on their website at sundevilfamily.org.
All right, let's start things off with ASU wide receiver Jalen Moss, who talks about the lessons he learned from his time working his way back from injury, and now that he's contributing, how he fits into the Sun Devil offense led by Jeff Sims. It's a big win against West Virginia in the last couple weeks. Now that you're healthy, contributing more and more. What are some of the big takeaways from as you reviewed the film from the win over the Mountaineers? How the offense performed.
Sure, we could have played a lot better. I feel like I could have played a lot better. I was kind of hard on myself in that game. But you live and you learn. You got to go back to the drawing board at the end of the day. I did some good things. I did some bad things. But, you got to just consistently come out here and just be on your A game, come out here and get better. So that's what I came out here to do going into this Colorado game.
So you mentioned the consistency, and so the first quarter, not a whole lot going on for the offense, but the second quarter, you guys really kind of exploded. Do you think perhaps that bye week where you guys were kind of no practices and Kenny was giving you guys a chance to heal up, did that maybe factor in a little bit to that slow start?
I don't think so, because like I said, we still were getting timing on with Jeff, making sure we were landmarks, spots, we were where we need to be when we need to be. So once we just got it going, it just felt natural. It felt like practice when we were out there with Jeff, and got all the receivers contributing. So that's what you want to see as a receiving group, is everybody eating. So you happy that everybody eating, and happy that Jeff over here slinging the ball and also making plays on his own. So it's up for everybody.
What has Jeff brought to this offense over these last couple of weeks? Obviously, he's putting up a lot of touchdowns, and you guys are having a lot of success and winning ball games, most importantly.
I just feel like just the confidence we know we trust him, that he trusts us, and we're just going to do our 111th and get everybody to come out with the dub. So we just got to do our 111th, go out there, win the play, win the down, win the drive, and take everything will take care of itself.
What makes him kind of a special player that's able to kind of obviously command the respect of you guys in the huddle, but also produce on the field? Just
the chemistry off the field. It goes beyond from being on the field. Once we step off this field, we're brothers, and that's the chemistry we have when we get in that huddle and we get to calling the plays, and when we get to getting the ball going to Raleigh, to me, Malik, Derek, so Kamari, Shaman, Harp. So it's just a lot of guys, just the chemistry of a brotherhood, and we just carry it from on the field to off the field, back on the field, and it's just a consistent balance.
So West Virginia goes out and takes that lead, and then you guys hit the field knowing that you got to get some points. What's the kind of the mindset and the mentality in that huddle before you guys go out there for a drive that ultimately gets the game-winning field goal?
There's got to be a last drive. We got to what Dilly said, we got to twist the knife. We got to finish the game. So that's what we had to go out there and do regardless. We know we got our backs against the wall. We want to win every game for the rest of the season. So that's what we're going to go out here and going to do. Play hard, play physical, and the brand of football we're trying to establish.
Early in the year, battling some injuries, how tough was that for you to come to a new place where you want to contribute, but just not being able to get out there on the field and and help this offense?
It was real frustrating mentally and physically. It wasn't the best thing. I wanted to be out there with my brothers. I couldn't even, be there a part of the game sometimes. So, but once I did, it was just a refreshing feeling to come back out here. But, it's adversity for me. I've never been in that situation. I've never missed that amount of games in college before. So I just had to try to move forward, try to make sure I'm not staying in one spot and not improving, not getting better at something. And that was just the biggest thing for me. It was just a takeaway to get closer to God, allow him to take hold of me and move me forward and move me the path he wants me to go. It's also just being here for myself, my family being here, even my teammates, my brothers, the receiving room, just there for me because they know it's a hard time for me as well. So.
Obviously, you said you learned some lessons there going through that adversity. What were some of the ways perhaps you also helped to contribute to that wide receiver room, even though you weren't going to be able to be on the field during those weeks?
Sometimes, I'll just talk to the guys, because, like I said, I couldn't be around much people. I'd be on the game, probably chop it up, talk on the phone, just normal guys. Like I said, when it gets on the field, we're brothers, I can sit down and call anybody in the receiving room, even Coach Ward, Brady, Dane, anybody in there, I'll call them, and it's just a brotherhood, it's just family in there. So just being able to know that I got people in my corner, regardless of what situation I go through, and I can pick up the phone and call them, vent, whatever, got to be, get it off my chest, pray, something, it's going to help. And just allowing that was probably the easiest thing.
When you look at this Colorado defense, it's had some struggles over the course of the year, but some intriguing young talent on there. What's some things that kind of jump out about what the Colorado defense likes to do from a schematic perspective?
We just got to win our one-on-ones. Whoever's in front of us, we just got to win, no matter what it is. Play pitch and catch with Jeff, and just be physical and block and hold down the perimeter. And just doing the same consistent thing we've been doing in practice, allowing ourselves to continue to be better. Each drive, we got to go out there and be better. Each play, we got to go out there and win. just have that mentality, have that just drilled into your head, and then we gotta twist the knife, finish the game. So that's what we all thinking about this week, and we're going into this week thinking about.
All right, so big win over West Virginia. It still seems like the team's kind of looking for that consistency of playing a complete game, full 60 minutes, and kind of a tale of two halves. What was kind of your big takeaways? Kind of reviewing the film against the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I think with everything moving forward, we had to finish, and finish plays. The one that sticks out with me was the third and 27, and then he took it 90 yards. Like that's something that we look at defensively and get embarrassed about. We can't have that, and as players, and even me, I hold myself accountable. I was out there on the field at the time. Like we can't have plays like that after a huge sack by Watt. So just got to finish. Finish the drives, finish the quarters, finish the half, finish the game.
Overall, it seemed like the team started a little bit slow out of the gates before kind of turning things on in that second quarter. What kind of impact do you think, maybe having that week off, at least physically, off the bye, did that really play into that at all?
In terms of starting slow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think anytime you come off a bye, your body's just not used to game speed set yet. So you got to come out, get ready, be prepared, and do a little bit better than we did. But I think it wasn't too bad. We had a few mistakes, there up front. Things that cost us long drives on defense. But the biggest thing, we had a few, goal line stops, so that was huge to start the game.
Yeah, what are some of the keys to those goal line stops? Obviously, in a situation where your back's to the wall, and obviously, the momentum of the game could potentially turn, but you guys ultimately got it done.
Yeah, everybody just doing their job, doing their 111th. Those play calls that Coach Ward was calling was, if everybody does their job, just to be in the right gap. You have one gap, are you going to be in it? You have one man, you're going to be with that man, or you're going to set the edge. Everybody did that. That's why we were able to come up with those stops.
And then ultimately, that last drive of the game, after the offense was able to get that lead. What's the mentality? What's the message in that huddle before you guys take the field on that final drive?
Must-stop situation. We've been in that situation many times this year, so we know defensively we got to hold them, and we couldn't even let them get into field goal range, so we knew we had to play tight coverage. And the last call was a great call. They weren't expecting, the quarterback obviously wasn't, so got off the field.
And then going up to Boulder, face a Colorado team that's had some struggles this year, but exciting young quarterback. What are some of the things in kind of the early study of the Buffaloes that jump out to you offensively?
Yeah, they got some great athletes. Receivers are, all of them are good. They're explosive players. The running backs are solid too, and can make you miss. O-lines, they're getting better and better every week, and their scheme, it's changed throughout the year with the coaching changes, but it's simple offense, but they still find explosive plays with that. So the biggest thing you got to do, you got to stop the explosive plays, stop their their fake balls.
Should be a cold night up there in Boulder. Do you like playing in the cold?
Yeah, I'm from the Midwest, so that's just I wouldn't call that the Midwest, but I play in temperatures. If you're playing in November around this time in Missouri, it's about the same temperature.
What are some of the keys to getting a big win and continuing this win streak?
Just finish. We talked about it last night. As a team, was we had to finish. And I put in my notes, big capital letters. We have to finish, and I have to finish, whatever that is. Finish my recovery. Practice. My workouts, everything. I got to put everything together and just finish the year out.
Now then, before we wrap things up, ASU's home field advantage showed up once again at Mountain America Stadium last weekend. And if you're in the market for a new home, you want to use the equity in your home to your advantage, kind of like the Sun Devils do on game day when they take advantage of that home turf. There's a name you can trust, and likely a name you already know that can help you out in the mortgage game, and that's More Lending. That's MOR Lending. They're as ASU as it gets. You wonder why? Because their national director of builder services is none other than one half of the Tailgate Tag Team Champions of the world. Everyone's great friend, PJ Saturno of the legendary Crafty Devils Group. PJ and his crew certainly know how to get you going, get you ready for ASU game days, and with over 40 years of experience in mortgage lending, PJ and his team will do their absolute best to help you with your mortgage needs. At More Lending, they truly put the customer first and care about helping you in the best possible ways, and they can operate in several states, including Arizona, California, Texas, and more, and they can help you out whether your needs are on the residential side or on the commercial side of things. More Lending can help with a variety of needs. Purchases and refinances, they got your back. Also, be sure to ask about options for those who are self-employed or looking into investment properties. And they're located in the heart of Sun Devil territory in Scottsdale. You can find out more information at morelending.com. Again, that's morlending.com. And reach out to see how they can help you. You can email PJ. His address is pj@morelending.com. You can give him a call at 480-329-0983. Again, 480-329-0983. More Lending, that's MOR Lending, a new kind of mortgage company with tailored lending solutions to meet your needs. PJ Saturno, NMLS number 257912. More Lending, LLC branch, NMLS number 2732146.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. We'd like to thank our guests, wide receiver Jalen Moss, linebacker Keyshaun Elliott, and Colorado Buffalo insider Brian Howell. This Saturday's game will kick off at 6 p.m. Arizona time. Television will be on ESPN2, and some good news, of course, for our YouTube TV subscribers, myself included. The ESPN networks and ABC, it's all back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's good news for people who participate in that sort of thing.
And also make sure to stay with us on the social media side of things. You can follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, and give me a follow on all things social media at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy 42. And obviously be sure to check us out with our Friday, the new digs that we've been doing with our On Time Down, giving you some updated information after those injury reports come through or late breaking news in the week. It's always good to kind of supplement the main show here with a little dash of something later in the week, because stuff can and often does pop up as the week progresses.
Always something university. Got to keep you on your toes, folks. So Joe and I will be back next week as we look back at what happened in Boulder and turn our attention to Hate Week.